So we're in the booklet on page 12. This is a continuation of other side of the page was about Ahavas Yisroel. And we explained that there are two sides to the coin of Ahavas Yisroel. One side is that because you love someone, you do something for them, you help them, and you are doing something which is going to be sort of helpful to that person, giving them something, whether you're giving food, whether you're giving clothing, whether you're giving advice, whether you're giving support. But then there's also another scenario, which is also based on Ahavas Yisroel, which is that if you see someone doing something wrong, something which is not appropriate, and you have the ability, the power to stop them, to prevent them from doing it by talking to them, then there's a mitzvah in the Torah, which is on page 12, Hocheach Kotechocha, that then I have an obligation to talk to the person and stop them from doing what they're doing. So we only covered half the page. First of all, we explained that this only applies in a situation where I know that by talking to them, I'm actually going to prevent something from happening that's negative. But if I know that it's not going to prevent, and even more than that, it'll actually provoke them to be more sort of rebellious or be more upset. So obviously, that's not something which the Torah wants. So we have that quote that just like it's a mitzvah to say something. When you know the other person will listen, it's equally a mitzvah not to say something, not to say anything when you know that they won't listen. So we're now up to number 6 on the list. No, number 5, actually. Yeah. Number 5 in Hebrew reads, Kol Yisroel, Arevim Zeh Bazeh, which literally means all Yidden are sort of responsible for one another. The word Arev in Hebrew means like a guarantor. When you take out a loan, someone says, I'm taking responsibility for that person. If they don't pay back the loan, I'll pay for them. So that's from the same root. It means all Yidden are really responsible for one another, which means that, to give an example, when the Rebbe first came out with the Tefillin campaign, when was it? It was during the 6-Day War in Israel. It was a very frightening time. Just looking at things from a natural perspective, it looked like, Chas v'shalom, they would just destroy everything. Because we were being attacked from Arabs from all sides. I think there was never a war like that before or after that. Different Arabs from different sides are attacking us all at once. Nevertheless, there was these big miracles. But one of the things that the Rebbe said then to bring Hashem's miracle was to put on tefillin. Because tefillin, there's 2 things about tefillin. Number 1, it gives long life. This is what's found in Gemara. Another thing, it specifically helps us to be victorious over our enemies. There's a pasuk where it says that your enemies will be afraid of you because of Hashem's name that's upon you. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? When you wear tefillin and Hashem's name is on your head, that'll cause the enemies to be afraid of you. So all over the world, every effort was made that Yidden should put on tefillin, and this would be in the merit for those Yidden who live in Eretz Yisrael, and especially the soldiers who are fighting the enemy. But the question came up, naturally, if the soldier will put on tefillin, I can understand, but I'm putting on tefillin, and I live in New York, or someone else lives in California, or in England, what does it have to do with the soldier fighting in Israel? So the Rebbe gave the analogy of the human body, that if a person comes to a doctor and tells them that they have an infection in a certain part of his body, and the doctor gives him an injection in the arm. And you'd say, why are you giving me an injection in the arm? I was telling you the infection is in my leg or someplace else in the body. And the answer is because all the blood vessels, everything's connected. And when you give an injection in one part of the body, the blood carries that medicine, that medication to other parts of the body, and the body is healed. Being that all Yidden are one, so therefore, when one Yid, no matter where he lives, puts on tefillin, this can help everybody else wherever they may be. Similarly, I once saw a letter that his parents wrote to the Rebbe that their daughter disconnected from them. They think she's involved in a cult. They don't know where she is. They have no way of reaching her, and they have no way of influencing her and protecting her. What should they do? And the Rebbe said that a family is like a body. Just like a body has hands and feet and eyes and nose and mouth and different organs, a family has different members that together they constitute the family, parents and children. So just like in the body, by, like I said a moment ago, by injecting medicine in one part of the body, it helps the other part of the body. So you can't reach her, but if you yourself would strengthen yourself in Torah or mitzvahs, that merit will go for her wherever she is, because it's all one. So this statement means all Yidden are one. And therefore, whatever one person does in the positive affects everybody else. And what one person does in the negative also affects everybody else. And that's like the example we gave with the Sefer Torah, that if one letter in the Torah is missing, the whole Torah becomes disqualified. Even those letters that are written perfectly and they're new and there's not anything missing, but if there's one letter missing in the whole Torah, all the other letters become disqualified. So therefore, we're all responsible for each other, which means we can all do something good, which will help everyone else. And we can also do the opposite, the chas v'shalom to do, which will do the opposite. Number 6 is an expression found in the Gemara about how to relate to someone or situations where there is a need for discipline. So the Gemara says the way to approach it is to bring the other person closer to you with your right hand and push them away with your left hand. What does that mean? Generally speaking, it means there should be a balance. Even if you have to discipline someone, they should feel your love and your care. And sometimes you can't only, for example, talking about a child, you can't raise a child only with love and just say yes, 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 yes. If a child is never disciplined, then that child will never understand what it means, what no means. They'll never understand what it means that I can't get what I want. And then unfortunately, they'll get into a lot of trouble because they won't be able to live a normal life. Anything that doesn't work out their way, they'll be falling apart. So sometimes you have to discipline a child, and sometimes you have to do the other. But so the Mishnah says, the right hand, you bring them closer. With the left hand, you discipline. So there's 2 points that we see over here. Number 1, the first thing is you try with the right hand. And the second thing is you try with the left hand. In other words, today it's called positive reinforcement. You can either tell the child, if you don't do this and this, you're going to be punished. Or you can tell the child, if you do the right thing, you're going to get a reward. Or just say things that you're proud of them and how much you love them and how much they are accomplishing and achieving. That's called positive reinforcement. So the fact that the Torah is written in this order, which is first try doing things in a positive way. If it doesn't work and it's not accomplishing what it's supposed to, and you see there's absolutely no choice, I must also use discipline, then you discipline the child, but that comes second. That's not the first thing you do. The second point you see is in Torah, the right hand, and of course every person is an individual, and there are exceptions, but in general, what's most common is the right hand is the stronger hand, and the left hand is the weaker hand. In fact, in the Chumash, when it talks about tefillin, you probably know that a man puts the tefillin on the left hand.
Because it's closer to the heart, no?
That's one reason. But the actual source of the Chumash is because it says you should put it on yodcha, your hand. But the word yodcha is spelled in such a way that it looks as if it's 2 words. Your weak hand, and the weaker hand is the left hand. So therefore, if someone is actually left-handed, No, but if someone's left-handed, they put a tefillah on the right hand. They do
For
put
ambidextrous, they do both.
what?
They're ambidextrous, they do both.
They have what?
When they are ambidextrous, they actually have to put on both.
Well, in some cases, you have to put on both because there's questions in halacha. What if somebody does certain things with the right hand other than with the left hand?
So then you put on both hands.
So some opinions hold that because it says in the Torah, and you'll write the parshas of the tefillin, we go by writing. If a person writes with his right hand, then you're right-handed. If you write with your left hand, then you're left-handed.
But
Anyway,
there's people that write with both hands.
Emir, when your children become bar mitzvah, you can come back again and check with me how it works. So, by that time, you'll have a Rav that you'll be talking to, and you'll answer all your questions.
No, it's not a question. I'm saying I've heard this.
Okay, it's true. Yeah, it said that if you do both, but there is a question as what defines that you're right-handed. Which is it? Work? Is it writing? Is it other things? There's a Rav, and it's a halachic question. We can't just shake
I'm
our
not
heads.
asking a question. What I was saying is that there are people that write with both hands, and those people actually have to put it on both arms.
That's what I said. Yeah. The way it's done, they don't do it simultaneously. They put it on one hand, and after the davening's over, they put it on the other hand because there's a question. Okay, so the right hand is a stronger hand. So there's another message here, and that is when you're doing it, when you're going to try to influence the child through chesed, through kindness, through positive reinforcement, do that full force. When you're doing something which is the opposite, you're disciplining the child, and you're sort of pushing away means like you're sort of rejecting, you're not allowing him, you're confining him, restricting him. That, even if you have to do it, but do it with a left hand, do it in a weak way. Like not chas v'shalom that you enjoy, or he feels that you're doing it full force. It reminds me of a question that was once asked. Let's put it this way. Cats like to get rid of mice. An exterminator likes to get rid of mice. What's the difference between the two?
One wants to eat them, one just wants to get rid of them.
One is like a dog rolls on the other one, it's their instinct. Cats actually eat mice.
Cats, yeah, we'll go into the gory details, but Anyway, what Rivka said is, I'm going to say the same thing, but just a little bit different. The cat has a vested interest, there should be more mice. The exterminator wants there should be less mice. In other words, the cat is also getting rid of mice, but actually enjoys the process of getting rid of mice. The exterminator or whoever it is that owns the house also wants to get rid of the mice, but they don't want the mice and they don't want to get rid of them. They don't enjoy getting rid of mice. Sometimes when a person is disciplining someone, like using the strong hands, they don't realize it, but they're sort of allowing a certain mean streak in them to exercise itself. It's not coming so much out of love for the other person. It's coming more because I have that mean streak in me, and this is a legitimate good reason how I can exercise it. So therefore, what the Mishnah is saying is when you're doing kindness, when you're doing something positive, or even saying a positive word to make the other person feel better, do that with your right hand. If you see there's no choice, I must be strong, I must put my foot down, I have to use discipline, even if you do have to do it, it should be with the left hand. I'm meaning to do it in a weak way. I'm doing it reluctantly because I have no choice. Not chas v'shalom that I enjoy doing that. Okay. What is number 7? Number 7 is a halacha. It's actually a pasuk in the Torah. It's one of the 365 commandments. And that is, in English, don't stand and watch your friend's blood being spilled. What does that mean? If you see someone in danger, God forbid someone's drowning, someone's being attacked by an animal, someone's being attacked by a thief, by a robber, and you see it happening, and you could do something to save them or to prevent it from happening, and you don't, then a certain extent you are sort of considered responsible for what happened. And the logic behind it is very simple. If this person got to be drowning, and I was able to jump in the water to save him, or at least run to someone else who could swim and save him, and I don't, that means it happened because I didn't do what I needed to do to prevent it from happening. So I'm responsible. Or the same with other kind of damage. So in the Torah it says that this is considered in an indirect way, like you're responsible, the other person is being killed. This is similar to the concept of techacha, of rebuke. That if I can prevent someone from doing something wrong, not physically being damaged, but spiritually being damaged or hurt, and I don't, then to a certain extent, I carry the obligation and responsibility. Again, let's always remember, it still does not mean you can do and say whatever you want. It has to be done in the right way, the sensitive way, because we know many people, unfortunately, became so much more resentful and almost hateful of Yiddishkeit because other people tried to force it on them, impose it on them, or even worse than that. And because of that, they don't want anything to do with it. I still remember when the Rebbe was not well, one of the people that came to the Rebbe was a doctor, an Israeli fellow. And whenever he came, his wife would come along with him, but she would never get out of the car. She would wait in the car. And they would go out from the Rebbe's secretary. They go out to her and say, well, please, what do you have to sit in the car for? Come inside or sit down. She wouldn't go sit in the car. This is a time where the Rebbe, after the Rebbe had the stroke, the Rebbe wasn't speaking. Without speaking, this person became a Balshuva, the doctor. He was totally not religious. But something about the whole experience with the Rebbe turned him around. And he became, and his wife also became. And after a while, they invited her to speak at a women's convention. And she said the following. She said that when she was young, she lived in Israel, in Jerusalem. And she actually witnessed, and it happened to her, that they were doing something on Shabbos, driving or carrying, or they were not dressed tzias, whatever it was. And there were other people who were religious Jews who were screaming at them, calling them names and throwing rocks at them. I said, since then, I can't look at a religious Jew. And the reason why I sat in the car, I never went into 770, was because I didn't want to have anything to do with these people. So naturally, she had no idea that these people themselves are not, they don't represent the whole Jewish nation. They don't represent the whole Orthodox community. These are certain individuals that were extremists, unfortunately. But what we see from this is that that's not what the Torah is talking about, rebuke your fellow. These are the kind of things that do the opposite. Rebuke means find a way to get the other person to do what has to be done. This is doing something which makes them further away than they ever would have been. So therefore, we always have to be careful of what comes out of our mouth and what I do. So whatever I do should be inspiring somebody. You're never allowed to embarrass another person, insult them, say something negative, and definitely not to say something which would make them turn against Torah, turn against mitzvahs, turn against Hashem because of the way I'm acting, the way I'm speaking. So, being that there's a commandment that if I see someone is in trouble physically, if I could prevent it from happening, I should. The same applies spiritually. Number 8 is the connection, where it says in Gemara that spiritual death is worse than physical death. So if I see somebody that's either injuring themselves, or God forbid, worse than that, from a spiritual perspective, just the same, I have responsibility to prevent it from happening. Number 9 and number 11, 10 and number 11 are all connected. 8? What?
You're keeping number 8?
I just said number 8. Spiritual death is worse than physical death, which means if there's a mitzvah, if there's a commandment that if you could prevent someone from God from being killed and you don't, you're responsible. If I know that I could prevent someone, I mean, this is what the Rebbe always says about miftzayim, about shlichus. If I could prevent someone from desecrating Shabbos, from doing avodah zarah, from intermarriage and things like that, and I could really succeed at it, and I don't, to a certain extent, I carry responsibility. The Rebbe would very often laugh and say that in America there's an expression, mind your own business. But the truth is, it is my business because we're all connected. Yeah.
What if you have like a family or like a friend and they work on Shabbos? Or like, if you tell them like don't work on Shabbos and like
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, we're approaching Thanksgiving. Some of you are going home to family. Could you imagine walking into the house and telling them you're not allowed to do this, you must do that, and take the light bulb out of the refrigerator, let me cover all the switches. This is a trigger to make people only upset at Yiddishkeit. You're not going to make them closer to Yiddishkeit. So these are the cases where the second line on the page applies. Just like it's a mitzvah to say things when it will help, it's a mitzvah not to say anything when it won't help. And what happens when you don't say anything, you're creating more of a closeness. And when there's more of a closeness, you can accomplish much more than walking into someone's place and trying to take over and telling them how to live. So as much as we have all these halachas, there's one, they tell the story that there was once a Rav that was giving his students smicha. You know what smicha is? That you're officially ordained as a Rav. And in order to get smicha, you have to know, there's different levels, but the full levels, you have to know all 4 volumes of the Shulchan Aruch. So one of the students was ready to get his smicha, and then his teacher told him, you're doing great, all 4 volumes, I tested you, but I can't give you smicha because you don't have the 5th. And he was like, shocked, the 5th? Not only I don't have it, I never even knew that it existed. So he said, the 5th volume is called Common Sense. You have to know where to apply what and how. And this would be a perfect example. Somebody would say, oh, the halacha is you have to say something. You'll say something in the wrong time, in the wrong place, to the wrong person. And all you brought was the opposite of what the Torah wants. So it's an expression used, I guess, based on this story, that there's a 5th volume, and that's called common sense. You know where to apply and how to apply something. So number 9, number 10, and 11 is dealing with another subject. The other subject is, you know what, I should really go for a moment, skip to number 13. Number 13. Up until now, we're talking about telling somebody something else. What if someone tells something to me? How am I supposed to react? Well, we know that generally speaking, nobody likes to hear anything that is criticism. And in the Torah, it says, in fact, it's also in Pirkei Avos, but in a different chapter, that a person should have this trait of oihei v'satechacha, to appreciate constructive criticism. And the reason is because when a person points out something to me, that's how I learn. Imagine you're learning how to drive a car, and the teacher that's teaching you tells you, no, when you turn the corner, you got to do this. And you get all upset. Don't tell me what to do. How are you going to learn how to drive? Anything. You're learning a skill. You're a doctor, and you're learning how to do surgery, learning how to perform in medical procedures. Of course, if you do something wrong, you want the person to tell you this was wrong, because if you don't, what's going to happen? You're going to chas v'shalom cause a lot of unnecessary damage. So the same is with our spiritual well-being. If a person really sincerely wants to grow and really sincerely wants to follow a path which is the path that Hashem wants us to follow, to do what's right, not to do things that are inappropriate, I would actually appreciate if somebody would point it out to me. Of course, it's important that the one who points it out does it in a sensitive way, doesn't insult me, doesn't embarrass me, doesn't scream at me. But in principle, I should actually want people to tell me what I'm doing wrong, so I'm doing it the right way. So, in some ways, this character trait is a very basic one, because there are a lot of character traits that are negative, and some of them are really, really devastating and very destructive. But the good news is that if I work on it, I can master it, I can change it. It's like saying there are different kinds of infections, there are different kinds of diseases, different kinds of illnesses. But the good news is that there's so much medicine out there, there's so much technology out there, so much new things in the world today that there's so much that could be done. But there's one condition. And the condition is the person who's sick has to be aware that they're sick. Otherwise, they're not going to go to a doctor. They won't even be looking for a doctor, and they'll never be able to heal what needs to be healed until, God forbid, it's too late. So to be in denial that I have something wrong with me is the most dangerous things physically, medically. To be in denial that I have something wrong with me spiritually is also one of the most dangerous things. How could I grow? How could I change? How could I improve if I'm perfect? So we have to be open to hear if there's anything that I need to correct. So it's really related to both people. The person who's giving the criticism has to make sure that it's being done in a constructive way, in a sensitive way, in a caring way. It's coming from a good place. The person who's receiving it should respond in a positive way, and in a way that they should realize that this will only help them grow and be able to improve and not have any, not like with a car, you don't want to have any accidents if you listen to what you're being told, how to drive a car. If you don't listen, it's inevitable you won't have any accidents, that you will have accidents because you don't know what you're doing. So unfortunately, I must say, and you're probably aware of it, that this character trait is one of the most rare character traits. People, generally speaking, do not want to hear constructive criticism. No criticism at all. I have a secret. Even people that come to you and say, just tell me what's wrong with me, and I'll work on it. And if you say something, you're in trouble. Most people just don't want to hear it. But the truth is, this is a tactic of the Yetzer Hara to block us, because if a person is open, there's no limit to how much they can grow, because it's being pointed out to them. So the question is as follows. Can I point out something to another person, that's something that they need to improve, if I myself am lacking in that area? Can I point it out to that person, or it won't work? Oh, so what you're saying now is number 11. Look what it says. Mum shabach, don't criticize others with your own faults. Like if I'm never on time, I shouldn't tell somebody, why can't you be on time? It would be a joke, you know, it means nothing. If I'm not neat, I can't say to the person, I can't believe that you're so not neat. I mean, look who's talking. So the Mishnah says, it's found in Gemara, it's even found in Rashi and Chumash, don't tell others, don't point out to others, don't criticize them, meaning constructive criticism, but even if it's constructive, but don't give constructive criticism with something that you yourself are lacking, because then they won't accept it. They won't take it seriously. Nevertheless, I heard there was once a mashpia who was a mashpia in the yeshiva with the bachrim, the men, and he asked the Rebbe this question. Like sometimes I demand of the bachrim about something about their davening, about their learning, about their yirat shamayim. Is it okay for me to demand of someone something that I myself haven't gotten there yet? Is it okay? So the Rebbe gave a very interesting answer. The Rebbe's answer was, if you demand it of yourself, it's okay. In other words, like an example I gave before, I'm not on time. And I don't care that I'm not on time. I'm always late. I mess everybody else's plans up because I'm not on time. But I'm going to tell you, why aren't you on time? That's a joke. What if I'm not on time, but I'm working on it and I really demand it of myself? I want to change it. Then there's nothing wrong with telling someone else something about being on time, because I sincerely care about it. The fact that I haven't mastered it means I didn't get there yet. But that's why the Rebbe said, if you are demanding it of yourself, then it's okay to demand it of your students. But if you yourself don't care about it and don't even demand to change it within yourself, don't tell it to your students because they'll just laugh at you. I don't mean laugh at you, but they won't accept it. So this is connected to number 12, also a very famous quote. Dvorim hayetzim min halev, words that come from the heart penetrate the heart.
What does penetrate mean?
What?
What does penetrate mean?
Penetrate means that it goes in.
Mhm.
If it's not from the heart, it'll just bounce off. It won't go in. So therefore, if I myself have a certain fault and I don't care about it, and I point it out to someone else, they feel that it's not sincere. And if it's not sincere, they're not going to accept it. And similarly, number 10. Number 10 is also first improve yourself and then improve others. And then comes number 9, also similar. Take away the pillar from between your eyes. What is that? It's an expression in Rashi that if someone says to his friend, you have a piece of a toothpick stuck between your teeth. So he tells them, you have a pillar between your eyes. It's an expression saying, if I tell someone they have something wrong and I have the same thing or even more, they'll just point it back at me. So the big question is, if that's the case, how can we do mivtzoyim? How can we go out and tell people to do things? Does that mean that I can only tell them something that I myself am perfect in that area? Or not? To be continued tomorrow. You have time to think about it.